Vegas was born to gambling, and poker is its backbone. Tonight, the biggest game in the world is in town. This is the 34th annual World Series of Poker.
Shuffle up and deal!
The greatest players in the game have gathered at Binion's Horseshoe Casino to battle it out for poker supremacy.
Be careful.
Thank you, Jesus!
It's day 3 of the World Series of Poker. Fremont Street is buzzing tonight as the countdown continues towards the crowning of the next world champion of poker. The big stacks of chips today were in front of a former car salesman, Amir Vahidi, a San Francisco cop and amateur player, Brian Watkins, and ex-champ Scotty Wynn. They, along with 100 others, gunning for the $2.5 million top prize. Hello, everybody. I'm Lon McCarron, along with sports columnist and tournament player Norman Chad, coming to you from Binion's Horseshoe Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. As we begin day 3 of this 5-day event, just over 100 players of our original field of 839, a new record, do remain. At our featured table today, 2 of the biggest names in the game, Johnny Chan and Howard Lederer. Should be a lot of fun to watch.
Oh yeah, Johnny Chan's always fun. He's the last player to win back-to-back World Series titles in 1987 and 88. Fearsome sight at the table, particularly when he's wearing his sunglasses and has a large stack of chips in front of him. He's called the perfect player. Howard Lederer is called the professor of poker. He looks smart, he plays smart, he can stare you down at a table enough to reveal your soul. I mean, he'll look at you long enough that he'll finally know more about you than you know about yourself when he's done.
A scary opponent indeed. One more man I have to mention before we get underway at our featured table. His name is Chris Moneymaker. Not sure how well he will do, but I'm sure he's hoping to live up to that moniker. There is our featured table for the day. And a good look at Chris Moneymaker, just a regular guy, an accountant for a restaurant chain here with the big boys. He's playing next to one of his heroes and a 2-time champion right there, Johnny Chan, the Orient Express.
Johnny has a 10 and a 5, nothing good, and he's gone.
Another one of the heavyweights at this featured table, as we mentioned, Howard Lederer. Very methodical type player, and he likes the ace-9 suited.
When he puts a chip on top of his cards, that means he's going to play the hand. He's protecting his hand from being killed. He doesn't want anybody else getting anywhere near it. And we'll see what he wants to do. He bets. It brings us over to Paul Darden now.
Paul Darden in the blue shirt with a suited queen ace, and he's going to push all in right from the get-go. About 36,000 chips right there, and raising an eyebrow from Howard Lederer. And you see that number next to Darden's name on the screen is the percentage he will have the best hand when all is said and done.
Howard always deliberate, figuring every angle he can, calculating what he needs.
Trying to look into the soul of Paul Darden right now.
I'm going to call the call.
Howard's going to call.
He calls, and he'll see he's behind in the hand. They both have an ace, and both have a flush draw.
All right, here comes the flop.
Oh, and strike up the band for Paul Darden. He already has the best hand. Now he has a straight draw. He has a flush draw. He even has a straight flush draw. It's party time for Paul Darden.
And there's a turn card, a 6 of diamonds, and that check mark indicates Darden does have the best hand. It's a flush, and he takes down Lederer.
And Lederer will be drawing dead on the river, and he's just going to have to suck it up and take that one.
Largest stack on the board. You know I can't be bluffing you, but I know you could call, you could gamble still, too.
So Paul Darden takes the first hand on day 3 of this no-limit Texas Hold'em tournament. Here's how you play no-limit Texas Hold'em. Everyone is dealt 2 cards face down. Players then bet, and for the first time must decide whether they're in or they're out. Next comes the flop. 3 community cards placed face up in the middle of the table that everyone can use. Players bet again. The dealer then reveals the turn, another community card, also called 4th Street. After another round of betting, the final community card is dealt. This is called the River, or 5th Street. One last time, players bet. Then reveal their cards. The best 5-card hand wins. But this is no limit hold'em.
All in.
And at any time, a player can go all in and bet everything he has. So at the World Series, every hand can be the hand that makes you or breaks you. One lesson that cannot be taught is how well to read the other players, and that certainly is prime for this man right there, Howard Lederer, one of the renowned visionaries of the table.
Yes.
2 tens.
They didn't need much vision to see that he's got pocket tens, and he'll play it.
Howard with a $3,800 bet.
4,800 is the bet.
Next in line, the action to Paul Darden, coming off a win just a moment ago over Howard Lederer.
Oh, hello to the Queens.
Hello there.
That's something good to look at.
Now, Darden coming off an all-in call, has a few more chips to play with now.
And that's a big raise. He goes to 40,000.
40,000.
Rest of the table deciding in or out. Johnny Chan is out. There is Refugio Quintero. He will not join the party.
Howard doesn't know if he wants him. This might be a one-man party, but Howard's considering now. He's got a very good hand, pair of tens, and he's trying to figure out whether Paul Darden's better than him, and he sniffed it out. Great laydown.
I want to show you that I didn't rob you of pup.
Yeah, give me that big old smile. You know, you just picked my pocket about 4 times already today.
Don't believe. Don't believe. Don't believe.
Paul Darden laying the foundation for a psychological war that he's starting with Howard Lederer. I'm sure there's more of that to come. There's Johnny Chan, one of the more famous poker players in the world. Been pretty quiet today, but certainly no fluke that he's still here playing on day number 3.
If I get hold of some chips early, I've become real dangerous. The main thing is having chips and picking the right table. You get hold of those chips become a lot of ammunition. You're not going to war. If you get a lot of bullets, you're going to win the war.
I mean, one of the best players in the world, still a factor, still someone I don't want to see at my table.
Instinct is the most important thing in a poker game. You know, I just had that killer instinct.
And that instinct has certainly served him well over the years. A 2-time winner of this event, one of the most feared players. Johnny Chan with his lucky orange in his corner.
Jack 10 offsuit.
8,000. And now we'll see what happens to the rest of the table under the pressure of Johnny Chan. Quintero's cards, Ace-7, not good enough to stay.
Johnny's aura sometimes drives people out.
We saw a lot of that in day 2. Didn't win a lot of big pots, but he was collecting the pots. Over to Paul Darden.
You know, what you got to ask yourself is, why do you want to call Johnny Chan heads up? It's like swapping spit with an alligator.
Chris Moneymaker. Still, nobody wants to play. Johnny Chan will take the pot, and perhaps the Orient Express can get back on track here at the 34th Annual World Series of Poker. Welcome back to Binion's Horseshoe Casino. The cards have already been dealt. The players now deciding, are they in or are they out? Paul Darden has bet 6,000 on this hand. He's been a big mover today. Over 150,000 in the stack now. Started with 36. Action now to Howard Lederer.
And Paul Darden had the Ace-10 offsuit. Howard with a good-looking start in hand.
Throws him away again.
Wow, Ace-Queen suited. Sometimes you can wait a week for that hand.
That was respect there.
It better be. You know where I was at?
Man, I can't believe I just laid that now.
We got Ace-Jack, Ace-Queen off.
You wouldn't believe it if I told you.
There's always someone who gets the best of you at a table, and it looks like Howard Lederer wants to stay away from Paul Darden at the moment.
2 9s.
Now that, I'm not laying down. 2 9s.
As we continue, Darden and Lederer still glancing over at each other.
Well, it's friendly rivalry. It's more like water pistols than machine guns. They respect each other.
Another huge laydown. Okay, I had that beat too. Now I'm hot.
I'm glad you laid it down.
The rest of the table folded. Darden in the big blind wins the pot. And you know, Norm, that Darden has become the table captain right now, the more talkative of the players. He is the big mover. He has earned a lot of chips on this day. Learned to play the game in the back room of his dad's pool hall in New Haven, Connecticut. He still resides there. As he checks his hole cards, 4, 5 of clubs.
Well, they bet that in the back rooms.
He's going to play it. Action now to Brian Haverson, former CEO of Nutrisystems, sold the company. He's got ace-king.
And with an ace-king, it's not if you're going to play, but how you're going to play.
I'm going to raise.
He's going to play strongly.
15,000.
So now back to Paul Darden with his 4-5.
That's a loose call, though. Even though it's 4-5 of clubs, it's a pretty loose call from Paul Darden.
Here comes the flop now. All paint, Jack, Queen, King, and 2 clubs.
And what that does is give Haverson a pair of kings and a straight draw. And Paul Darden has picked up a club draw on this, but Haverson right now about a 2-to-1 favorite in the hand.
I'm all in.
Brian Haverson likes his hand. He is moving all in. He's got to push about 30,000 more into the center. And he tries to stare down Paul Darden.
How much is it?
Very close to 40.
Paul's asking how much, which surprises me. He doesn't have much of a hand. All he has is a draw right now. He's got 5 high, but he's thinking about it.
I don't have none.
And he says he doesn't have anything.
But a draw. I call.
Wow. That surprises me. And it stuns Brian Haverson.
You had to call me with that.
Because I made a draw. I thought you was trying to re-steal at that store.
Almost apologetic that he's calling that.
Yeah, a little guilt.
Oh, and there's a queen of clubs, and it gives Darden the flush.
And Brian Haverson all but out now. He's going to need a king or a queen on the river to make a full house and win this.
And here comes the river. 7 of hearts, and that's going to do it.
Oh, that's just a brutal way to end your day.
Paul Darden perhaps shouldn't have even been in this hand, ends up beating and eliminating Brian Haverson.
If I'm him, I'm headed straight to the bar.
So Paul Darden's good luck continues here at the featured table, and he's rolling through everybody else. Just about 100 players remaining in the tournament here at Binion's. Among the chip leaders coming into today are the 2 big Phils. Right there is Phil Ivey, who actually taught Paul Darden how to play No Limit Hold'em, and Phil Hellmuth, the '89 champion, and they're going head-to-head right now. Ivey will bet $9,000 on his cards.
I really like Phil Ivey's chances to win this championship. He mixes up his play. He's very aggressive. He's willing to put all his chips in at any time from any angle.
Well, he was just raised by Phil Hellmuth, 26,000. And Ivey says a little too rich for my blood.
Looks like I might be backing the wrong Phil.
I don't think you can go wrong when you bet on anybody named Phil in this room today. And there you get a good look at our chip leader of the day, Amir Vahidi, the only player to come in with over 300,000 chips. He is known as a player not afraid to put his money on the line.
And I have to put my money out there, my money's out there, everybody knows that. In some point you have to tell these people, listen, who's the boss. So you want to mess with me, it's going to cost you. So you have to be willing to die in order to live in this no limit tournament. That's basically it.
Well, everybody dies except one man, and Amir is making a good run at being that man right now, going heads up on the outside table against last year's runner-up, Julian Gardner.
I'm all in.
Oh, and Gardner goes all in, and immediately Amir is going to call him.
And he tells him he has a straight already.
So we're waiting for 5th Street to see if there's any help for Julian Gardner, and it is not. Amir Vahidi with another big pot 1 to add to his huge stack. Back to our featured table, and with the exit of Brian Haverson, we have added another player to the table. He is Kenna James, an actor from Anaheim, a former actor from Anaheim, but he's going to have to be an actor if he's going to be a successful poker player.
It's the best training there is.
Howard Lederer with a pair of sixes. And he makes it $6,000 to the rest of the table. Paul Darden, who has been his arch nemesis for most of the day, folds as well. And the action to the new man at the table, Kenna James.
Now, through those sunglasses, he'll see pocket queens.
Raise.
What a very polite raise from the new man at the table. Don't want to ruffle any feathers.
He raises about 15,000.
That could ruffle some feathers, I guess, in its own way. We saw Johnny Chan fold, and now the decision-making goes to Howard Lederer.
And Howard Lederer already into his mid-season stare. A stare that makes many of his opponents uncomfortable. He will keep looking at you while he decides what he wants to do. And a lot of the other players don't even like to make eye contact with him.
He has those black laser-like eyes, too. What is Kenna James doing?
You know, I tried that in my first marriage, and it didn't work.
Kenna James is going to try anything to get out of sight lines of Howard Lederer.
It must be like a sweat box in there. He's looking for some ventilation.
Howard can stare you down for an awful long time.
Howard has got into Zen Buddhism over the last year, and he's read Zen and the Art of Archery about staying in the moment. With Howard, that moment can last quite a while.
Much to the dismay of Kenna James.
But the point of all this is Howard trying to make the correct read.
Okay, it's safe. You can come out now.
And he folds in the process. He did make the right read, though.
And Howard might have saved Kenna's life right there.
Well, not surprising. He covered up against Howard Lederer. Howard is the master of knowing the odds and reading the opponent.
I think one of the things that I do better than some other analytical players who may be more strictly analytical than me is that I understand that the game isn't all about the numbers. I feel it's very important to know the numbers, but it still comes down to your gut instincts. It still comes down to just taking a read, looking at a guy's face, looking at the way he just furrowed his brow as he put the chips in the pot. There's something that tells you he has it or he doesn't have it. And you can't put numbers on that. So the numbers only take you so far. I think it's very important to be grounded in the numbers. But to go to the next level, it's all about instinct.
Surviving the next level. That's what the key is here at the World Series of Poker. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Binion's Horseshoe Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Amongst the many pros here at the World Series of Poker are hundreds of amateurs, or what the pros call dead money. By day 3, though, is dead money still considered dead money? Right there, amateur Brian Watkins, the cop from San Francisco, was second in total chips at the start of the day, but things have not been going his way.
Can I show you one card?
Got one. He's got one.
Good or the bad? You pick one. You pick one.
Next up is Tomer Benvenitzi, an expedition tour guide from right here in Vegas. Tomer has made a steady run over the first 3 days and continues to stockpile chips in his bid for the $2.5 million.
Tomer's sort of an amateur and he's sort of a ringer. He's been playing in Las Vegas a number of years, so he knows what he's doing.
Another newcomer in the room who's built up a large stack is whiz kid Dutch Boyd. He went to college at age 12, graduated from law school at 18, and right now he's in trouble. He's got 3 4s against 3 jacks going to the river. His opponent is all in.
Wow. Good luck,
The river comes a 4, and Dutch Boyd takes the hand.
Jesus. I mean, it was a bad call. I mean, it really was a bad call. I knew he had the jacks, but I called anyway. And I got there. That's poker. I'm sorry. I feel really bad.
The whiz kid may be smart, but sometimes it pays to be lucky.
Some great action in the outer field. And speaking of new faces, at our featured table, World Series of Poker rookie Chris Moneymaker started the day at just about 100,000. Let's find out more about this man called Moneymaker.
Chris Moneymaker from Knoxville, Tennessee. I first started playing poker about
3.5 years ago. Really learned the ropes on my own, playing with friends. Movie Rounders came out, and we watched it and started getting interested in Hold'em and started playing it, and just a lot of play, a lot of lost money. I walked into the room when I first got here and I saw Phil Hellmuth and Johnny Chan and all them, and I was a little bit taken aback and in awe. Johnny Chan came in and sat down on my right, and Phil Ivey came in and sat on my left, and I knew who both the guys were. So immediately, I'm nervous, and I get outplayed. I lose $60,000 off the top. Just I played scared, and I thought they had pocket aces every time they played. So and they ran over me, and I looked pretty bad. And I went to bed that night, and I made a decision. I said, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. If I get beat, I get beat. I'm going to play my game.
Back at the main table, Chris Moneymaker again playing next to one of his idols, Johnny Chan. It'll be interesting to see if actually he employs his own advice and becomes a little more bold against these guys.
Yeah, it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to actually do it. Very difficult to make that transition.
Kenneth James throws in his cards, now looking at the whole cards of Johnny Chan with a king-jack.
Raise.
And he makes it 4,000.
The action now moves up the table to Howard Lederer as he checks his whole cards, and he's looking at ace-queen. Not bad.
Yeah, he puts the chip on top of his 2 cards. He's going to play the hand, obviously. It's a question of whether he wants to call or raise Johnny Chan with the ace-queen offsuited.
Well, the Lederer A1 computer has figured the odds, and he wants to bet. And he's going to raise it $12,000. As we move around, Darden folds. Next in line, Chris Moneymaker.
Chris Moneymaker, interestingly, had never played in a live tournament before coming to the World Series. He paid $40 to participate in an online tournament, and he won his $10,000 seat into the World Series by winning that tournament online.
And here he is in Las Vegas, staring down 2 of the biggest names in the game, Howard Lederer and Johnny Chan.
Yeah, we just heard him say that he's not going to back down, and in fact, we're seeing him stare them down and trying to sort of out-muscle or even out-intimidate them.
He says he's learned a lot from both of these players over the years, and he's using their techniques on them right now.
You know it's up to you, right?
I didn't even know I had a hand. I'm sorry.
Or is he? I think he just forgot to play, Norm.
You're staring at him. I'm thinking, what? Are you looking into his soul or what?
Sorry, I thought y'all were in the hand. I didn't even look down.
He just flat out forgot, Norm.
Yeah, we have to thank Johnny Chan. We might have been here all night.
You were like staring at him like it was like you were trying to figure something out in a second. What the hell?
Oh, well, Howard Lederer wins the hand. Chris Moneymaker learns a lesson.
Off his eyes and
Welcome back to Binion's Horseshoe Casino in Las Vegas, and our featured table where the topic of discussion is still Chris Moneymaker forgetting his turn.
I apologize, guys. I didn't know I had a hand. I thought I folded mine a long time ago. Sorry, hell, I thought y'all were in the hand.
Well, we heard Chris mention earlier he was a big fan of the poker movie Rounders, which featured Matt Damon and none other than that man, Johnny Chan.
Wow. 88 World Series, huh? Johnny Chan flops the nut straight and has the discipline to wait him out. He knows Seidel's gonna bluff at it.
I enjoyed shooting the movie with Mac Damon and Norton.
I'm at the Taj and it's late and I see Johnny Chan walk in. And the whole place stops. Everybody puts an eye on him.
I mean, they had my face blow up like 300-pound Johnny Chan. I look like kind of like a, real tough and mean person, which I'm not. I wasn't even supposed to be in the movie, but my daughter, Jennifer, asked me, hey, I want to meet Mac Damon. And I say, well, let me see, I can arrange that. I told the producer, I gotta be in the movie. They say, okay.
He owns him.
Well, Johnny's won this event twice. I'm not sure they're going to hand out any Oscars for him for the movie.
Hey, I thought Johnny Chan was a heck of a method actor in rounders.
He is a star here in Las Vegas, and now considering his cards.
Paul Darden considering right now just a 9. Ooh, an ace peeks out there. Ace-9 for Paul Darden.
He has been a very powerful player today at this table, and a bet of $3,500. Kenna James started the day about 57,000.
Pair of eights.
Yeah, likes what he sees. A couple of eights. And on to Hollywood Johnny.
He hasn't seen much today. A pair of 5s looks pretty good. He's going to play it also.
Action up to Howard Lederer. Started the day about 205, and well, sometimes we win, sometimes we don't on the hole cards. We're not quite sure what Howard is playing, but he seems to like it.
Well, Howard's sure of what he's playing, and we don't know what he has, but he's got to have something if he's calling 3 players in front of him, all 3 strong players.
We're going to see a flop with 4 players in. It's 2, 3, 4, all clubs.
Interesting flop, and Howard is going to be first to act now because he's in the big blind. Kenna James has a flush draw. Johnny Chan also has a straight flush draw with the 5 of clubs, and that didn't really help Paul Darden.
And now you at home can act the poker player against Howard Lederer. Figure out what you may do against 2 hole cards you don't know. A very strong bet from Howard Lederer, raises 14,000.
14,000. You know, he's got 3 strong players behind him. Now, he's either, it's hard to figure what he has. He might have pocket kings. He might have an ace of clubs. He might have been playing like an ace 10 or ace jack. He might have the flush already. But when he's got 3 players behind him to put out that bet, he's got to have something. And
Darden.
We've already lost Darden, and now we lose Kenna James.
Right now up to Johnny Chan. He knows the power that Howard Lederer brings to any poker table. And he's not going to go up against that power. The first big pot for Howard Lederer today. I wonder what his cards were. As we continue on, in day 3, tension is high and nerves are frayed as the players hope to hang on for another day and possibly finish in the money. Everyone here expects this guy, Howard Lederer, to live on until tomorrow. He's not, though, the only member of his family playing in the tournament. Younger sister Annie Duke also in the room. She's considered amongst the top female players in the world. They do share a close bond. Just don't expect blood to be thicker than chips when they share the same poker table.
That's me when I'm 15. That's my brother when he's 18.
I certainly grew up in a very competitive environment.
The way that our family interacted with each other was through games, so and mainly card games.
We would have some big battles there. Cards would go flying occasionally. And it was often Annie flinging them.
If I lost, the cards were going across the room.
She really didn't like to lose. Those were the seeds of my poker career, planted right there. And she got started playing poker because I was already playing and starting to do well, and she really caught the bug.
I just called my brother up and I said, well, you know, maybe you could teach me poker. And I did well. He gave me good lessons.
We played against each other quite a bit.
The first year I ever played the World Series, I knocked him out on the first day. I treat him like I treat anybody else at the table.
I'm certainly rooting for her and she's rooting for me, but if we're at the same table, we're trying to beat each other.
There's Annie at one of the outer tables in her familiar perched position. Hanging tough today, has not really been able to build up a big stack. She's right now head-to-head with pro Tony D, who went to the final table last year.
Yeah, Annie apparently was taught by her brother to stare the other players down a little and read them a lot.
Tony D going all in on this hand. Now Annie's got to weigh the odds.
I'm going to throw the best hand away for you just this once. But don't be doing that again, because next time I'm going to call you with this hand, just so you know.
Annie had the ace-king suited and gave it away.
And we saw Howard give away an ace-queen suited. Sibling type of theory.
Well, he taught her everything he knows. Howard checking across the room on little sis. As we get back to our action at the featured table. The tension at this table and all around the room beginning to get thicker and thicker as the evening wears on. Chris Moneymaker now taking a look. 2 whole cards, a couple of aces. Not a bad way to start this hand.
He raises to 4,500. That's a moderate raise with the pocket aces.
Nobody else wants any action except perhaps this man who has not decided yet, Howard Lederer.
Howard with an ace-king.
And he's going to raise it 10,000 to Chris Moneymaker.
And Chris just a smooth call there. So he does not come back over the top of Howard Lederer.
Or perhaps he did not want to sit there under the glare of Howard Lederer's eyes.
This does save time.
Now the flop. It is 6-3-8.
No help to either player, and this makes Moneymaker the much stronger position right now. Howard doesn't know this, but he would need king-king after this to win the hand. He was in the big blind, so he's first to act here with the ace-king.
And does not take that much time here to put in a $25,000 bet.
This is a great spot for Chris Moneymaker.
I'm all in.
And he goes all in. Boy, he's played this more like a seasoned pro than an online amateur. By not re-raising Howard before the flop, he induced Howard to bet after the flop and got some more money out of him he wouldn't have otherwise. Howard might have just folded earlier.
And Howard does indeed fold, and Moneymaker backs Lederer down.
I can breathe again.
Well, the education of rookie Chris Moneymaker continues. Welcome back to Las Vegas, Nevada, and the 34th Annual World Series of Poker. Lon McCarron along with Norman Chad continuing action at our featured table. And we've got 3 players in front of Paul Darden folding, so the action to the young man. And a 7 and a 6.
Well, not the prettiest looking cards in the world, but Paul mixes it up sometimes. He's gonna bet 3,500 with nothing.
Over to Chris Moneymaker. If anybody has momentum right now, it is this rookie. And he's going to call that bet. And we are going to see a flop.
So Chris Moneymaker with a pocket 3s. And Paul with 6-7 off suited, not much.
Flop comes out ace, king, and 4.
No help to either right here.
To Darden.
You know, Paul Darden told us that he prefers playing against pros than amateurs because you know what a pro's going to do, and an amateur, you're just not really sure. So it's easier to read a pro. They both check to take a free look at the turn, which helps neither one of them.
Again up to Darden, and Darden is going to go bold here with a bet.
He's betting with nothing. He's decided he's going to, pull the trigger and try to take it down right here.
Chris Moneymaker going to raise him.
He's going to try to take it down himself. Like they say, sometimes in Hold'em, the target shoots back. And Paul doesn't like it.
Not at all. So he folds, and Chris Moneymaker takes the pot.
There are 2 straight hands where Moneymaker looking more and more like a pro.
And Paul Darden left to mutter to himself, wondering when he can regain his momentum. We take a look around the field tables. 4 former world champions remain in this competition. Among them is Phil Hellmuth, of course, the youngest ever to win it. He did it back in 1989. The elder statesman of the group, Dan Harrington, who won it in 1995. And Scotty Wynn did it a few years later in 1998. These 3 all have very different styles, but they all realize that one of the keys to winning is the ability to read the opponent.
Every great poker player out there, they all have different style.
This is a partial information game. The more information you acquire that your opponents don't have, that means you have an edge.
I seem to look right into people's souls sometimes. I don't know what it is.
Some is very aggressive, some is very loose, some is very tight.
It's the way they move their arms. It's the way they move their face. It's the way they look at me. It's their betting pattern.
I don't want to make it sound like some kind of Zen-like feeling, but in a sense, maybe it's like that.
It all adds up to a story. And I'm very good at reading people's story.
Me, you know, I just take one hand at the time because winning is everything, you know.
Scotty Wynn at the outer tables says winning is everything. Oh, but clearly not the only thing. He folds, not liking the read he got on his opponent. Looks like he was bluffed. He misread, and he's unhappy.
I know something like that.
Well, you had one overcard.
Phil Hellmuth, meanwhile, looking at a king and a queen on the board. He's trying to get a read on Sammy Farha to his right. Sammy calls the bet.
Top two.
And then Phil shows him the king and queen.
Wow, you played that? King, queen of diamond? I feel like we have cheated.
Sammy knows he's beat. Phil takes the pot. As for Harrington, well, he's been reading people for a long time. And oftentimes he likes what he reads. Goes with a $9,000 raise at the table. Nobody bites. The rest of the table folds, and the ex-champion is that much richer. The fourth of our ex-champions still alive on day 3 is none other than Johnny Chan, who's been playing here at our featured table. He needs something to happen quickly. Chris Moneymaker has built a nice stack for himself today, but Johnny Chan looking for any help, and he is getting a little moral support from his family. That's his son hanging on the rail behind him.
Well, eventually he's going to need chip support. He just hasn't been able to build any chips all day, and he's getting a little frustrated.
Another frustrated player right there, Paul Darden, who had a lot of fireworks early on, built that stack, but been a bit quiet recently. Most of the table momentum going to this man, Chris Moneymaker, now with an ace-3 suited.
And he's getting the chips ready to do something.
He's going to raise, and Johnny, I don't know, can he not believe it, or just wondering
Johnny's thinking, hey, the kid had only seen me on the big screen 3-4 years ago. Now he's betting in front of me. Well, what the heck is this all about?
Well, Johnny's going to re-raise him with an ace-jack.
And Johnny with the stronger hand than Chris Moneymaker, as we see the other players folding around the table. Chan would be about a 2-to-1 favorite over Moneymaker right now in the hand.
What you got?
And now the young kid asking the vet, how much you got in your stack?
It's got to burn Johnny Chan a little inside. Just his body language tells you, what is it with this kid?
Calls him. So we're going to see a flop. Moneymaker and Chan head to head again. And it goes queen to jack.
And that gives Johnny Chan a pair of jacks with his ace kicker. Chris Moneymaker has nothing right now and will check. Johnny Chan far, far ahead at this point.
And does the correct thing here with a bet. $10,500 is the bet from the 2-time World Series of Poker champion and the rookie.
Good lay down.
But not going to do it.
He's been schooled by somebody or something.
So Johnny Chan gets a very important pot. It's not a big one, but this guy says he needs only one chip to be a factor in any tournament.
Maybe if you're Chris Moneymaker, Lon, you're wondering if you've got what it takes to beat these big boys.
Well, the story will continue to unfold when we come back to Vegas. Welcome back to Binion's Horseshoe Casino. We are winding down at the end of today's session. 3 days and the fatigue beginning to set in, and it's only going to get worse as we get deeper into this tournament. Johnny Chan just hopes he'll have the opportunity. He picked up a small pot a moment ago, but still looking at the small stack of the table just in front of him.
I'll tell you, that orange should get federal disaster relief funds at this point.
Absolutely. I don't know if that's going to survive the day, even if Johnny does. Cards are in the air, and Johnny Chan now checking the hole cards. Ace and 3 suited.
And he's going to bet it.
Interesting.
It's interesting. He's in a fairly early position, and he might be pressing just a little now. The ace-3, not that strong. A lot of people behind him. And now Howard's picked up a pair of 8s.
The Sharks starting to surround Johnny Chan right now, looking for any opportunity maybe to get a champion out of a tournament.
And there is a raise by Howard Lederer with his pocket eights.
8,000 is the raise. Darden, no action for him. And Johnny Chan's going to call the raise. All right, we're ready for the flop. 2 7s and a 3.
Which means Johnny Chan now has 2 pair, but of course Howard Lederer with the better 2 pair with the 8s.
It's to Lederer now for the action.
And he bets.
He wastes very little time.
I go on him.
Johnny Chan going to put all the chips in.
29,400, he says.
What is it, 29-4?
He could be pressing a bit more here. He doesn't have that good of a hand.
At this point, Johnny Chan looking for any chance to double up. And Howard Lederer has the stack he would love to do it against.
Well, Howard's got to decide right now. He'd love to eliminate Johnny Chan. He's one of the more feared players around. But he doesn't want to make Johnny Chan healthy right now. And he knows if he calls here, even if he's a slight favorite, he could get outflopped after this and lose $30,000 more. So he's trying to decide, do I do and do I don't? And he says, I don't.
So Johnny Chan wins the pot. It's not a big pot, but Howard Lederer was not going to give him the satisfaction of taking any more chips at that moment. But Johnny Chan will take what he can right now. Checking the clock, this could be the final hand of the session. Players are going to want to make some fireworks before they hit the exits.
For Johnny Chan, there's been very little fireworks. He's had to go all in several times. In fact, yesterday, Johnny Chan went all in 6 straight times at the same table and took some money down, including from Chris Moneymaker, bullying him on one of the all-ins.
Well, Johnny Chan was able to do that. Maybe some of that aura has dwindled a bit today. We saw him go all in just a moment ago. Successful there. Darden, again, no action. Over to Chris Moneymaker. And he's going to raise 6,000 to Johnny Chan.
He will raise with the ace-8 suited.
Again, Johnny Chan having to make something happen. Maybe a little desperation in this former champion's eyes. Who knows? He's got a king-5 suited.
And this is a good flop for Moneymaker, because he has now the top pair of aces plus the ace flush draw. Johnny has a lower flush draw, so that's irrelevant, and he also has a straight draw with a 2. Much better cards for Chris Moneymaker right here.
And it looks like Chris Moneymaker is fully aware of that, and he's going to bet to Johnny Chan. And Johnny has to make something happen. He is going to raise back to Moneymaker.
$11,000.
Yeah, Chris Moneymaker, about a 2-to-1 favorite. Excuse me. He would actually be much more than the 2-to-1 favorite right now with the nut flush draw and the pair of aces against Johnny. Johnny's raise makes him take his glasses off.
55, 60,000.
Oh, Moneymaker asking Chan what he's got right there is more of an irritant. It really comes from a position of power in this player. Moneymaker, who's puffed himself up to be on the same level as the great Johnny Chan.
So Johnny Chan just on a draw here. He's thinking maybe because Chris was on the button, he was overplaying his hand, didn't have much. But as we know, Chris has the pair of aces and the ace flush draw.
Well, the rest of the players have left the table for the break, and right now we have the perfect player against the amateur of amateur, mano a mano, in this hollowed-out poker ring.
I'm all in.
So there you have it. Chris Moneymaker laying down the challenge to Johnny Chan.
And he thinks he has the best hand, and he does. And to me, this is going to be tough for Johnny to call. When you go all in, you want to have the best hand. You just don't want to be on a draw. All Johnny has right now is a draw. I'd be surprised if he goes any further.
All right. You got it.
Johnny's going to put it on the line.
I need a heart, dealer.
Johnny's best chance is a deuce for a straight.
Wow, yeah, man, in bad shape. All right. Put a deuce up there. No deuce.
All right, here we go. Moment of truth. The turn card, a 9 of hearts, and that's going to do it. Chris Moneymaker with the ace-high flush takes down Johnny Chan.
Wow, this is like Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. The 2-time champion goes down in a heartbeat. Sometimes even the perfect player has imperfections. He put all his chips at risk on a draw. All he had was a draw, and now he's going to have to go home.
Chris Moneymaker learned his lesson well yesterday against Johnny Chan and used it today to defeat his idol.
He outplayed me yesterday, and I thought he was going to outplay me today. I just got a lucky hand and caught him that time. But he's a phenomenal player, and he's definitely tough to beat. I came in nervous as could be, and I've loosened up. But I hope I can finish this thing off and be a real moneymaker. I don't know.
There's a good look at our featured table, a very powerful table here featuring Scotty Nguyen, the 1998 champion here at the World Series of Poker. And he's going to start off with a King 10. At the far end with the hat, Bruno Fitoussi. Got a good stack coming into this table.
He folds. Bruno likes to sit with his chair turned backwards.
And there's Jonathan Kaplan in the white hat. Couple of jacks. And he's going to start off with a bet of $12,000. Keep an eye on your screen. We'll keep track of who has the upper hand. The number shown next to the player's name is the percentage that they will have the best cards when the hand is done, and certainly what they do with those cards is up to them. Scotty Nguyen has raised Jonathan Kaplan 18,000, and so the action back to Jonathan Kaplan right there.
A lot of poker players, Lon, only shave maybe once a week. But right now, Jonathan Kaplan trying to decide what he's going to do with the action that Scotty's put in front of him. And he's going to call.
Going to call it. So we will see a flop as we open our coverage. First three cards. Community cards, and they come out with 10, 5, and 4.
And that gives Scotty Nguyen a pair of 10s, a top pair on board, but still behind Kaplan's jacks.
I'm going on.
Scotty Nguyen's going to go all in.
Yeah, actually what Scotty's doing there, he's actually forcing Jonathan Kaplan to decide whether he wants to go all in, because Jonathan has fewer chips. If Jonathan were to lose his hand going all in, he would be eliminated.
I call.
So Jonathan Kaplan feels he has the best hand. He's going to push all his chips in and risk his tournament right here.
And indeed, he does have the best hand right now. He's a 3-to-1 favorite with those jacks over Scotty Nguyen's pair of 10s.
And that news has just reached Scotty Nguyen. A grim look on this former champion's face. Ready now for the turn card. It is a 2 of hearts.
No help for Scotty Nguyen, and now Kaplan further ahead in the hand.
Final card, and it is a king of clubs.
Baby.
Scotty Nguyen has taken down Jonathan Kaplan.
That's just unfair, Lon, because Scotty Nguyen plays better than most everyone else, but he also runs lucky.
And he got lucky there, so Kaplan goes down as we begin our coverage of this no-limit Texas Hold'em tournament from Binion's. Here's how you play no-limit Texas Hold'em. Everyone is dealt 2 cards face down. Players then bet, and for the first time must decide whether they're in or they're out. Next comes the flop. 3 community cards placed face up in the middle of the table that everyone can use. Players bet again. The dealer then reveals the turn, another community card, also called 4th Street. After another round of betting, the final community card is dealt. This is called the River, or 5th Street. One last time, players bet. Then reveal their cards. The best 5-card hand wins. But this is no limit Hold'em. And at any time, a player can go all in and bet everything he has. So at the World Series, every hand could be the hand that makes you or breaks you. As we get back to our featured table, you will see some new faces here and there. As the field shrinks and chairs open up, players will move from other tables and join a particular table. And there's Scotty Nguyen with an 8-3, nothing to crow about. And Huberto Brenes checking his hole cards. He has ace-10, one of the more colorful players in the game.
Literally and figuratively.
So the cards have been dealt. The table now deciding how good exactly they have it. So far, nobody in. And you'll see in the blue shirt on the left of your screen, Jeff Schulman, editor of Card Player Magazine, a very good player on the circuit, but it looks like he does not want to join the action.
21.
Scotty says 21, even though he bet 12,000.
Did you hear I say 21?
Umberto says he wants to raise. Has not thrown the chips in just yet. As we look at that graphic, you see with the cards that they have, Brenes with an overwhelming advantage.
Now he's raised $40,000. Scotty Wynn had bet with an 8-3 offsuit. Now when you bet with absolutely nothing, when someone comes back over the top of you, you usually get rid of it. You muck the hand. I suspect he's going to get rid of this hand. He even eats chewing gum, interestingly, doesn't he?
He does. He does. I like that.
What a character.
South of the border feel.
Scotty taking his time. There's a 3-8 offsuit.
This is going to be the greatest move I ever made.
He's saying it's going to be the greatest move he's ever made. I'm amazed at what he's doing. He's betting $100,000 on cards the Salvation Army would reject. Umberto Brenes has an ace-10. He's more than a 2-to-1 favorite.
Keep Michelob coming, baby.
Well, he said he likes to drink at the table. He's living up to that.
I tell you, I think you have to be drinking a shot and a beer to make that bet, but he's just got a beer.
Maybe if he had a 3-5 or something, he'd be taking the shot. But the 3-8, and now he's going to wait out Umberto Brenes.
He's got Umberto to take off the Red Sox cap and the sunglasses.
He's got to look inside Scotty Wynn to find out if he's bluffing. It's easy for us. We know the hole cards. But Umberto's got the tough task.
You can't call. Too much for you. 100,000, that's too much for you.
All right, I pass this time.
No. No!
Umberto's going to pass.
But you got. I bet 100,000 with this hand, baby.
Rubbing it in.
No. Turn over.
Hall of Fame bluff.
I told you 21. I thought I played blackjack. God damn.
Here's a man who knows how to play Vegas. Scotty Wynn, the former champion, flamboyant and bold, and a winner.
That's no limit, baby. They just love Scotty Wynn, man. Because my style, I can get along with everybody. Broke, rich, pretty, ugly, fat, and thin. Be happy. Even if I beat you a hand or beat them a hand, they're happy with that. Because they can go home and tell their grandkid or their son, like, I got beat by Scotty Wynn, you know? The greatest poker player ever lived, you know what I mean?
Anybody can learn to play the right cards, but the key to poker is learning to deal with a wide variety of personalities around the table, and Scotty Wynn certainly one of the best at getting inside your head. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Las Vegas, Nevada. A very critical day for all the players here at Binion's Horseshoe Casino as we get away from our featured table and go to some of the outer poker tables. And one of the heavy hitters in the room, Phil Ivey, right there, going heads up against Sam Farha. All the cards are already on the table. You see by the check mark next to Farha's name, he has the winning hand. We just have to see how Phil Ivey's going to play it.
Yeah, he's got a pair of 4 4s, and he has just raised Phil Ivey $90,000. And sometimes when a man raises you that much, it behooves you to take off your sunglasses. And Phil wants to figure out, can he call this? He just has 9s and 4s.
Ivey, second place at Jack Binion's World Poker Open earlier this year. A big decision right now.
I call.
He's going to call it.
And he is going to see the 4 4s over there.
Wow.
And a pain just shot right through Phil Ivey's entire body.
He started the day with 163,000, and he has just lost about 110,000 to Sam Farha. What a boost to that guy right there. Phil Ivey has a lot of ground to make up. Another player who's got a lot of ground to make up right there is Annie Duke, the only woman left in the field of about 55 players. Annie has been right on the edge most days. The best thing she can say is that she still is playing. But day to day, Annie has a lot more on her plate than most players.
I'm a professional poker player. I'm also a full-time mom. I don't get a lot of sleep. Come on, Leo.
She'll play till dawn, and she'll sleep till noon, and then I'll hand the kids off. She takes the kids pretty much at noon.
Everybody put your shoes on, we're gonna go out and eat.
I don't know how I do it. I mean, I basically have 2 jobs. Years from now, I'm gonna look back on this and I'm gonna say, man, I was really tired.
I don't have the same kind of freedom of time that a lot of the players have. What's up, honey? I've missed a lot of big events because my kids were having activities that I needed to do. Just a second. It's definitely a trade-off that I'm more than happy to make. We'll interview you later because I know what's more important than life anyway, so.
My name's Ma Duke. My mom, she is a great poker player. She's really good at poker, and I just really like how well she plays.
Poker is a really fun game, but I actually really vehemently would like my children never to do this because I think there's a lot of pitfalls that go along with being in a casino all the time. And that's not to say that I don't love what I do. I really do. But I don't get too vested in what happens in poker because in the end, it's not nearly as important as the other things going on in my life.
See you later. Have fun.
Annie trying to make something happen right now. She started the day about 77,000 chips. Here she does take in another pot. Not a real big one, but she needs to make something happen and something happen quick, Norm.
Yeah, no woman has ever made it to the final table. Annie has come closest.
That's right. In 2000, she did finish in 10th position, just 1 hand away from getting to that final table. Over at our featured table, we have her brother sitting there. You just catch a glimpse of him over on the right edge. That is Howard Lederer, who has taken a seat at our main table.
And at the main table, Lon, it is just a murderer's row of great players in seats 1, 2, and 3. Howard Lederer, Scotty Wynn, and Phil Ivey, all 3 a threat to win any tournament they ever enter.
And this is one of those tournaments that anyone can win. Chuck Hong right now with a couple of aces, and that's going to help him if he's going to win this tournament.
Chuck doesn't play a whole lot of hands. Obviously, he's going to play the aces.
And a $13,000 bet from Chuck Hong. Min Win not going to play. And now over to Howard Lederer.
Not much for Howard. 8-9 offsuit. But he's picking up chips. When they start picking up chips, they're thinking of doing something. Howard knows that Chuck Hong is a tight player, and he often will try to bluff this type of player.
Howard is going to raise him. The raise is $35,000 back to Chuck Hong.
Indeed, Howard, this time it is an attempt to just bluff and win the pot right here because he has nothing. And you can usually bluff tight players out. Of course, with a pair of aces, Chuck Hong's not going anywhere.
So now what does this tell you, as Chuck calls it, about the hand he has?
Well, Howard was not happy that he called. You know, he just figured he'd be running home at that point, and the fact that he called right there and Howard looking for a chip count on Chuck right now, he's not happy at all, and he knows he's behind in the hand. It's that simple.
You do see there the percentage, Chuck Hong, an overwhelming favorite, and the flop comes down 10-4 Jack. They both paid to see that flop.
And it actually helps Howard. He now has picked up an open-ended straight draw, but of course, otherwise, Chuck's still a 2-1 favorite in the hand because he has the aces, and Howard right now has 9 high.
No. How about you? 50.
Chuck Hong is going to bet $50,000. He's going to back up those aces in a big way.
The way Howard Lederer plays, I got to believe if Chuck even motioned to get near a chip, that Howard would be taking a bathroom break at this point and saying, see you later. But he's scratching his head, and I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking.
No, it's not going to do it. Not going to do it.
All right.
So Chuck Hong played it just the way Chuck Hong normally plays it. He's got the cards. He makes the bet. He took a little bit out of Howard that Howard did not want to give up. So Lederer tested the waters, but correctly pulled away. Chuck Hong gets a boost. Welcome back to Binion's Horseshoe Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. It is moving day here at the World Series of Poker. Two men who are trying to make big moves, some of the bigger names. Phil Hellmuth, he has a $35,000 bet on the table with his ace-king. Sam Farha with his queen-jack called that bet, and now we are ready for the flop in this heads-up showdown. And here it comes. It comes down king, 9, and 3.
And that flop gives Sam Farha both a flush draw and a straight draw.
2 of diamonds on the turn.
And that gives Sammy now the flush. They had checked off the flop. And Sammy now is in command of the hand.
And you see the check mark next to Sam's name means he does indeed have the best hand.
And he correctly bets 50,000. Phil calls. Phil cannot win the hand now.
The river, inconsequential. They don't know it, though. It's a 2 of hearts.
That gives Phil Hellmuth kings and 2s, but of course Sammy with the flush bets 80,000 and gets a look from Phil.
But Phil hesitates very little to call it.
Oh! He called $35,000 queen jack.
Well, there's the Phil pout. It's another case when Phil Hellmuth can't believe that an inferior player playing inferior cards, making a bad call against him, wins the hand. You know, Phil, that's called gambling.
Sometimes you lose when you gamble. This man has won more often than not today. That's our cop from San Francisco, Brian Watkins, holding a couple of 10s. Taking on Mark Grigorich, who has ace-king in his hole cards. Here comes the flop. It is king 4-3.
Giving Grigorich a pair of kings, better than Watkins' 10s.
Watkins, some of the dead money that came into the tournament, and Grigorich
goes all in.
Wow. Not a bad move, I guess, this late in the tournament for the guy, with a huge advantage here in this hand.
Watkins wants to know how much Grigorich has. It's just under 30,000. If Grigorich loses, he's out of this.
29.6. They do say 29.6.
If I knew this guy were a cop, I wouldn't be a criminal.
I think he called.
Yes, he has called.
Everybody in the room knows he called.
So it's the 10s against the kings, but a king comes on the turn, and now Grigorich way ahead in the hand with 3 kings. Only a 10 would save the cop.
And there it is.
Yes! Still save it. I don't believe it. Oh, yes! Ivey!
Brian Watkins and, more importantly, Mark Grigorich cannot believe that 10 came down.
They should be bringing over a stretcher to take Mark Grigorich out of here.
Well, this guy might need a stretcher to carry out all the chips. That is Dutch Boyd approaching 300,000 in chips. He knows how to make an impact at the table with more than just card play.
Chip Tricks 101. When you're playing poker, everything that you do at the table is for a reason. Chip Tricks, they show that you've been playing poker for a while. So, you do a lotto. Here's the first one people learn is the drop down. The chip roll. Okay. The moving down. Knuckle to knuckle, all right? In tournaments, you need respect. You need people to lay down hands because you need those pots. And if you know more tricks than the other guy, he thinks, I gotta watch out for him.
Well, a lot of players have to watch out for Dutch Boyd right now, a very powerful man at the tables, taking on Minneapolis Jim Meehan, who has ace-queen in his hand, and he has decided to go all in against Dutch Boyd's jacks. And here comes the flop. 6, 4, 8, no help. The turn is a 3. The final card is a 10, and that's not going to do it. Jim Meehan is eliminated, and Dutch Boyd, this young wonderkin, is our new chip leader here at Binion's with about 400,000. Dutch Boyd, a man who uses some chip tricks to boost his confidence at the table. Others use trinkets of one kind or another. Chris Gregorian's pyramid seems to be doing the tricks for him so far. Two members now of our featured table, we've mentioned Dead Money, are sitting right here. Tomer Benvenizzi, who is already in this hand, bet $12,000. He was considered dead money coming into the tournament. Chris Moneymaker, who took out the legendary Johnny Chan, was considered dead money. Do you still consider them so, Norm?
Well, I don't know if they're still dead money, because once you get in the money and the top 63 players in this tournament get paid money, they have made it to the top 63, so I don't know if they're dead money anymore. They're dead money with some money in their wallet because they've made money, and now Tomer is going to bet the flop. He still is ahead with a pair of 3s, and Chris Moneymaker has a straight draw. Otherwise, he has nothing.
It's $15,000 to Moneymaker, and he does call.
So a pair of 3s still ahead in the hand. It's pretty much a coin flip. And there, Chris Moneymaker will take the lead on the turn. A pair of kings now with his king, queen in the hole. But the action first to Tomer, and he's going to continue to fire away.
He is indeed. And Chris Moneymaker fires right back.
30,000 called this time.
Here comes the river. It's another king for Chris Moneymaker.
Come to mama, Chris Moneymaker says. He now has 3 kings, and Tomer still just has the pair of 3s, and now, of course, a pair of kings on board, but he bet before the flop, he bet after the flop, he bet after the turn, and Chris Moneymaker wouldn't go away. Now he's finally going to check.
So now to Chris Moneymaker, how hard does he want to push? He wants to push 50,000 hard.
Which is about right.
Now it's up to Tomer. He's teeing up the cards, and he kicks them in.
The white flag comes out.
Another good hand for Chris Moneymaker, and this Tennessee accountant has no problem counting his money. Back in Las Vegas, Lon McCarron along with Norman Chad in the 2003 World Series of Poker. Checking in once again with the last remaining female in the room, Annie Duke, hanging on. Right now she is going heads up on this table against the very colorful stack of chips and the very colorful repertoire, sartorially, Umberto Brenes.
He does have the big stack at this table. Okay, if Umberto's your uncle, you might want to check your family tree. What a character he is.
He would be fun to have as an uncle.
I raise.
Great. Well, right now, Annie Duke is going to raise Umberto Brenes.
Would that be called 4 eyes or 6 eyes?
Right now, Umberto might want some x-ray vision, and there you go. He throws in the hand. Annie Duke does take a small stack away from Umberto Brenes, and right there you see an unusual maneuver. Annie Duke shows her cards to Umberto and then flashes a smile at him. She seems to have struck up a rapport with Brenes at this point of the table.
Normally I would never show a hand, but I want to keep it very friendly with him because he's the big stack at the table, and keeping him off my back is very important.
A wise move indeed, not only if you're Annie Duke, but if you're anybody going against Umberto Brenes and that stack that he has. Back to our featured table. Annie's brother, Howard Lederer, has been stronger. Looking for more chips, definitely, to move into the next day. And there's a first look at Men the Master. Men win. A winner of over 40 tournaments and a very feared player. With a 10-7, is he still feared?
Oh, he's always feared. He's got great instincts. He's colorful. He loves to talk a lot. And here he loves to bet 20,000 on that 10-7 suited.
Men the Master and Howard Lederer, the only players in on this hand. And with Ace-King, Lederer has some thinking to do.
You know, before Men the Master became Men the Master, he was called Money Machine Lon when he first started playing because he'd lose all his cash and pull out his credit card to go to the ATM.
Well, poker is the only style of gambling that he does partake in, though he says it's not really gambling to him.
When you're that good, it's not gambling. He really knows all the angles.
All you have to do is push it in, man.
You told me to push it in, I'll push it in.
Be careful what you wish for.
All right, so we have an all-in Howard Lederer. And now the decision back to Men the Master.
And actually that forces Men to decide whether he wants to go all in. He has fewer chips, and so he'd be eliminated if he called this and lost. And 10-7 suited doesn't look nearly as good when someone like Howard Lederer pushes in all his chips behind you.
Over here. Ace Queen, Phil Ivey has the most chips. 9.
And the 10-7, as you said, Norm, not strong enough for Men to stay in this hand. And so Howard Lederer gets another small pot. And Men glares.
Well, if looks could kill, we'd have a homicide on our hands right now.
Some of the luck that Howard Lederer feeling right now, hoping to be transferred over to his sister. I'm sure he feels, as Annie Duke been scratching and clawing, try to stay in this tournament. Things not going very well for her at this moment as she finds herself at the table with that man, Dutch Boyd, who was among the chip leaders. We saw Annie having to be very careful with Umberto Brenes, who had a huge stack early on. And Annie playing along with Jason Lester there just to the left. And he's going to make a $12,000 bet. He has King-King.
And the action now is to Annie Duke.
All in.
And Annie Duke goes all in with her pair of jacks. She'll go all in for $63,500. There were only 30 women among the 839 entrants here, and Annie Duke's the last one left.
And she pushes in $63,500. All in, and now Dutch Boyd considers whether or not he's going to match that.
Happy if you don't call, I'm happy, frankly. I win the pot, that's okay. If I double up, that's fine.
A bit ambivalent about what Dutch Boyd does. And Dutch throws it in.
Probably some crazy psychology there going on.
No, I mean, no psychology. I'm telling you the truth.
I'm going to call.
Jason Lester is going to call with his kings.
Without question.
All in and call.
And he's going to see the sad sight that she is behind Lester, about a 4-1 favorite right now to send Annie Duke home.
The flop comes down 7-10-10. No help to Annie Duke.
Annie Duke needs a jack or her World Series is over.
On with the jacks. Flops 10-10-7, turn card 6.
And the river card comes up, Queen of Hearts, and that's going to do it. Jason Lester wins, and Annie Duke is going home. She will leave in 47th position. She heads back to her other job now as mom to her 4 kids. She gets some words of consolation from Howard Lederer, her brother, but she's got to feel she played that the only way she could.
I did as much as I could with what I was dealt, and hey, I'm happy to get my money in with jacks. It was the best hand I've seen in 6 hours. So, you know, if he has kings, he has kings. What am I going to do?
Back at Benyon's Horseshoe Casino, Lon McCarron along with Norman Chad at our featured table as the tension beginning to get thicker and thicker here. Howard Lederer has seen his sister go out. He'll have to hold up the family tradition now.
Howard always looks like he's in the waiting room of his doctor's office, you know, for his annual checkup.
He's got to be calm. Got to be calm. Scotty Wynn and Jeff Schulman also at this table. Some very strong players and a lot of chips at this featured table as well. Phil Ivey has a lot fewer chips now than he did earlier on. We saw him lose about 110, 115,000 on one hand to Sammy Farha. And so he's looking to rebuild that stack. One of the favorites here at the tournament. Scotty Wynn, another favorite, throws in his cards, not going to play.
Phil Ivey looks down at pocket sixes and reaches to play. 4,000, he will call the bet.
Rest of the table kicks in, and it's up to Chuck Hong, who also throws his cards away, and it's to Jeff Schulman with a 6 and a 10.
6-10 offsuit. They're rags, but he's in the small blind, so it's just another 2,000 for him to play, and he decides he's going to play him.
So we will see a flop. Phil Ivey, a lot riding on every hand right now. And the flop comes 4, 6, and 8.
And that's a sight for sore eyes for Phil Ivey, because that gives him a set of sixes, puts him in a commanding position in this hand, and obviously he's going to want to bet.
And he does indeed. The bet is 12,000 now to Jeff Schulman,
who only has a pair of sixes to play after this flop.
But he wastes no time to raise.
He's decided to raise. I guess he's putting Phil Ivey on nothing and decides he's going to come over the top and drive him out, but he's going to find out Phil Ivey's going nowhere.
Come on. Phil Ivey says he's all in.
How much? Well, Phil being very aggressive here. He's not having a good day. He's down to $50,000, $60,000 in chips, and he should go all in with this. He'd love to double up.
3 more. Well, I find myself in a little predicament here.
I don't think it's that much of a predicament. I don't think Phil's going to get a call out of Jeff Schulman.
He's got his hand on a stack of chips and he wants to play. Interesting play from Jeff Schulman.
Talked himself into it quite quickly, and he's going to see how far behind he is.
Runner, diamonds.
And he wants a couple of diamonds to get the flush.
No diamond on the turn, but if he gets another 10 on the river, Jeff Schulman can get a miracle win against Phil Ivey. He needs a 10.
Here's the river. It's a 4 of spades, and Phil Ivey doubles up at the expense of Jeff Schulman.
Wow. And, you know, the rest of the table can't like that. You don't want to give Phil Ivey more chips. It's like giving Charles Manson the keys to your house. Once you get him started, it is going to be tough to get him stopped.
So Phil Ivey, who was below 70,000, now up about 130, looking healthy. Ivey trying to build momentum now here at this featured table. And you look at his hole cards, momentum comes in a couple of jacks.
Yeah, if you're trying to get yourself on a rush, pocket jacks is a good way to get started.
So he's going to lay out a bet of 12,000. And when you have momentum like Ivey does, you want to take advantage of that because the rest of the table feels that as well.
Yeah, Lon, momentum helps, but great cards help even more. And right now the jacks are great cards. But Kevin Song, a seasoned player, seasoned tournament pro, has ace-king, and he tells us he's going to raise Phil Ivey.
He's already matched the 12,000, now deciding on the raise.
And he raises 12,000 over Phil Ivey. The action now to Chuck Hong, who folds.
Next to play is Jeff Schulman, and Phil Ivey giving him the glare. You want to play with me, you need some good cards. Schulman out, Lederer out, Scotty Wynn out, back to Phil. Does he want to call?
Oh, he's going to call. He says, I'm going to more than call. And again, very aggressive. When he thinks he has the best hand, he will put all his chips in. And right now, he's a slight favorite in the hand.
I call.
And actually, it's Kevin Song who's going all in with fewer chips. And Kevin Song will be eliminated if he does not come up with a better hand than the jacks. He has the ace-king, and he's going to be looking for an ace-king on this flop.
Almost apologetically, Ivey looks over and throws the jacks down, and Kevin Song gets a glimpse of it. That's all I could do at this point, maybe,
no help
Phil.
Yet
no.
For Mr. Song, who still needs an ace or a king to take the lead over Phil Ivey.
The turn card is a 5 of hearts.
Now, a 2 would give him a straight on the river, so an ace, a king, or a 2, and Kevin Song is still alive. Otherwise, he's gone.
And he is gone indeed. A 7 of spades. Phil Ivey's jacks hold up. He eliminates Kevin Song, but more importantly, Phil Ivey has built his stack up to 200,000.
Yeah, and if I were a betting man, well, I am a betting man, I'd wager your mortgage, Lon, that Phil Ivey's going all the way.
Well, this dangerous player just got stronger. More to come from Vegas in a moment. Welcome back to Las Vegas at our featured table, the 2003 World Series of Poker. One of the more feared gentlemen anywhere, Men the Master.
Everybody had a chance to win the big one. I'm a professional. I lose a little bit. Lucky me, only 23.50. I win big. I feel good. But don't matter what happened, I'm I'm laughing. They get knocked out, they won't chance me. I'm still man the master.
The master right now at our featured table, and that is David Gray, one of the men facing Men Win. And right now it is David Gray with a couple of aces, and that could master anybody.
20,000 is his bet.
As we move around the table, no takers till we get to Men Win in the decision-making process, and an ace-king.
Great.
Raised. No hesitation on Men Win's part.
50 more.
50,000 more.
50,000 is the raise.
Well, ace-king is literally your third or fourth best starting hand, but he doesn't know he's up against ace-ace, which is your best starting hand. Re-raise.
And what you would expect from David Gray, a re-raise.
How much he raised?
And Men the Master now has to be concerned on a couple of fronts. The re-raise was 70,000, and that's pretty much all he has left. Now, when you are going to go all in towards the end, you want to go on with the best hand, and he has ace-king, which is one of the best hands you could have. But he's got to be concerned. If David Gray has a pocket pair, he's a slight underdog to David Gray. If he puts David Gray somehow on ace-ace or king-king, then he's a huge underdog. But you really like to double up at this point. I got to believe he's going to want to play the ace-king because this is a great opportunity to make a lot of chips in one hand with the ace-king. He doesn't know David Gray is holding ace-ace.
All right.
It's a huge moment for Men Win. And nope, he's not going to play.
Boy, that's a tough laydown. I'm surprised. Men the Master deciding he did not want to risk all his chips at that moment.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that he figured David Gray had a pair. As we move away from our featured table, we look at the outer table. Looks like there's a presidential press conference over there. Something big must be happening. And we do have Chris Moneymaker in the hat on the left taking on Humberto Brenes. The flop is down 9-king-2. Brenes has ace-ace against Moneymaker's 8-8. Now we know what aces can do.
Yeah, well, these two have been trading punches all day long. And the pair of eights, Mr. Moneymaker has been walking between raindrops all day. But right now he's up against aces. That's a storm.
Moneymaker checked after the flop, and Humberto Brenes wants to get some action going, and he puts down a $30,000 bet.
Humberto, a big favorite in the hand right now.
How much does he have?
Chris thinking about it. Wants a chip count from Brenes's stack.
And he's told he has about 120,000. He's got a pair of eights, and he doesn't know Humberto has the pair of aces.
Chris Moneymaker took down Johnny Chan in an earlier session, and he is going to raise Humberto Brenes 120,000. And Humberto wants to dance.
All in shit now. Look one thing every time with me.
Yeah, they meet in the middle of the ring again, and this time Humberto Brenes with the big advantage. Aces against eights. Only an 8 is going to save Chris Moneymaker.
Well, I'm saying he might have chips now.
Doesn't matter, stir him up, guys.
He said he called.
I know, I'm in big trouble.
Oh, Chris says he's in big trouble. He knows it. Here comes a turn, and it's an 8 of clubs. The last card is no help to Brenes, and he has been eliminated.
Yeah, Johnny Chan was knocked out by Chris Moneymaker, and now another stunning knockout for Moneymaker against Humberto Brenes.
An amazing turn of events. Chris Moneymaker going against 2 aces, got the miracle 8 on the turn, and eliminates a very powerful player. How far can this young kid from Knoxville go? Chris Moneymaker continues to live up to his name, and for Humberto Brenes from Costa Rica, it's going to be a long flight home. We are nearing the end of our session here at Binion's, and for many players, it's time for all or nothing moves.
I'm only.
I bet everything I got.
Checking in on one of our outer tables, we do have a showdown between Chuck Hong and Scotty Nguyen. The flop has already come down 3 king 2. Chuck Hong is holding 2 kings, and he has gone all in against Scotty Nguyen and his ace king.
So with the flop, Chuck Hong has 3 kings. Scotty Nguyen has a pair of kings. And Chuck Hong is a very tight player. He doesn't play a whole lot of hands. So Scotty Nguyen has a dilemma right now. He knows he has the top pair that he's holding. But if Chuck Hong's gone in that big, he's got to be worried that he might be beat. And he's now doing his own countdown of his chips to see how much he'd have left if he calls the all-in.
Well, he's got to figure out what it might be worth. You always like to take out another player, but right now, at what price?
And I guarantee you Scotty Nguyen doesn't want to lay this hand down. He already put $69,000 into this pot before the flop. He's holding top pair with the kings. He's just worried he might be beat. You know, he's all but dead. He doesn't know it.
No, he's not going to play it. Not worth it to him.
And Scotty Nguyen sees a lot of chips go down. He doesn't like to see that happen. A lot of chips going to another guy.
And Chuck Hong all in and all survival mode right now. And we move over to our featured table, and I'm sure that mentality about survival is spreading very quickly throughout the room. Taking a look at Men the Master right now. Let's look at the pocket cards, 8 and 6. And Men is going to go all in. We just saw Chuck Hong go all in, and now the Master will as well.
Once again, Men the Master putting his head on the chopping block.
And against Howard Lederer, who has king 3.
And Howard puts a chip on the cards.
That usually means something, yeah.
Yep. And these two, they're an odd couple. They're not Felix and Oscar odd, but they're quite an odd pairing, these two.
Oh, yeah, you got Howard the professor.
And Men the Master is more like the kid in the back of the classroom throwing spitballs up front.
Well, now the play and the pressure on Howard Lederer. His decision now, does he want to joust with Men the Master, or does he feel like he can let him off the hook at this point of the day?
Yeah, he can send Men the Master home. He probably wishes he had better cards than King 3 suited.
Oh, and he lets him off the hook and folds.
Howard hates when he misreads, so he'll see those cards in his sleep tonight.
Thank you, Howard. I know Howard loved me. He said, man, I don't want to beat Men the Master. That's right. Thank you, thank you.
See, when you're in the back of the classroom, you can talk more trash also.
Well, Men the Master gleeful at surviving his all-in attempt. This session will come to an end with one more eliminated player, and right now, this man might be just that. Chuck Hong is all in. He's got 3 jacks on the turn against Dan Harrington, the 95 world champ, who has a full house, 10s over jacks.
And Harrington has to decide whether to call the all-in.
Call. I call.
Good.
And that's called.
And he does. And Chuck Hong is in dire straits. He only plays really good hands, and he has 3 jacks, but he's behind the 10s full house. He's going to need a jack, a queen, or a 7 to avoid being eliminated today.
And here comes the river card. Do or die for Chuck Hong. It is a 6 of clubs, and it is die. Chuck Hong survived a number of all-ins, but one too many. He lost the bet to Dan Harrington. A very respected player gets his due here at Binion's. A very tough hand for Chuck Hong to go out on, but not much more he could do right there. A whole lot of chips traded places today in a most exciting session of the World Series of Poker.
All you can eat, baby. That's no limit.
I got a chip in the chair. Tomorrow, I'm going to be aggressive as ever.
There were a lot of surprises today as Sammy Farha proved to be a giant killer, and young gun Phil Ivey put himself back in the hunt. Howard Lederer survived the day, but his sister Annie Duke was sent home. Dead Money dominated with Brian Watkins and Dutch Boyd, but former champion Scotty Nguyen is still vying for a chance at the championship bracelet and $2.5 million. Rookie Chris Moneymaker is still alive, but so too is veteran Phil Hellmuth. For Norman Chad, I'm Lon McCarran.
Hey, what happened here?
See you next time at the World Series of Poker.
Bye-bye.